Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Easy English Podcast. I'm Hannah, and as always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Alex.
Hi, Hannah, and a huge welcome to all of our listeners around the world. Today, we have a very special episode for you. We are going to tell a slow, beginner-friendly story. It is a story about a small mistake that turns into a big, stressful adventure.
That's right, Alex. We have all been there. You try to do a nice favor for a friend, and suddenly, everything goes wrong. Before we start our story today, let's learn some useful vocabulary that will help you understand the details better.
Perfect idea. Let's start with the word borrow. When you borrow something, you take it from someone for a short time and you promise to give it back. For example, can I borrow your pen for a minute? Or he borrowed my car for the weekend.
And the opposite of borrow is lend. When you lend something, you give it to someone for a short time. In our story, a character named Leo is going to borrow something very important, a set of keys. Alex, what is a set of keys?
Well, Hannah, a key is the small metal object you use to lock or unlock a door. Usually, we don't just have one key. We have several keys together on a metal ring. We call this a set of keys, or a keychain. It has the key to the front door, the back door, and maybe even the mailbox.
Exactly. And in our story, Leo is borrowing these keys to do a favor. He is going to water the plants for his friend Sarah. To water is a verb here. It means to pour water on plants so they do not dry up and die. Sarah has a beautiful apartment with lots of green, thirsty plants.
Yes, plants need water, especially when you go away on holiday. Sarah's going to the beach for a week, so she asks Leo, "Could you please water my plants?" Leo, being a very good friend, says, "Of course, I would love to."
Now, let's look at the word apartment. In British English, people often say flat. In American English, we say apartment. It is a home that is part of a larger building with many other homes. Sarah lives on the third floor of an apartment building.
To get into the apartment building, you first have to go through the main entrance or the lobby door at the street level. This door is usually locked for safety, so Leo needs the keys to get past this first door, and then he needs another key for Sarah's actual apartment door on the third floor.
Great explanation. So let's set the scene. It is a warm, sunny Tuesday afternoon. Leo is walking down the street towards Sarah's apartment building. He feels very responsible and happy. It is a peaceful day, and he is looking forward to seeing the plants.
He arrives at the building. In front of the main door, on the ground, there is a metal street grate. Hannah, how can we explain what a grate is to our listeners?
A grate, or a street grate, is a metal frame with bars or parallel slots. It covers a hole in the ground or a drain. It allows rainwater to flow down into the sewer system, but it stops large things from falling in. However, the spaces between the metal bars are just wide enough for small things to pass through, like keys.
Oh no, I can already see where this story is going. It makes my hands sweat just thinking about it. A metal grate right outside the apartment door is like a trap.
It really is. So Leo reaches into his pocket to pull out the set of keys. He finds them. He pulls them out, but as he does, the keychain catches on the edge of his pocket.
Oh no.
He loses his grip. The keys slip from his fingers. In slow motion, they fall. Clink, clink, plop.
Yes! They don't just hit the concrete. They hit the metal grate. They bounce once, twice, and then they slide right through one of the narrow gaps between the bars. They disappear into the dark, deep space below the street.
That sound is the worst sound in the world.
Clink, clink.
Then silence. Leo freezes. His heart starts beating very fast. This feeling is what we call panic. When you panic, you feel sudden, uncontrollable fear. You can't think clearly.
Your mind goes blank.
Exactly. Leo bends down. He gets on his knees on the dirty sidewalk. He puts his face right against the hot metal grate and looks down. It is very dark down there. He can barely see anything. But then he sees a tiny glint of silver. It is the keys. They're resting on a ledge about 2 feet down.
2 feet is about 60 centimeters. It is too deep for his hand. He tries to reach his arm through the bars, but his arm is too thick. He can only get his fingers through, and he is nowhere near the keys. He is stuck outside, and the keys are trapped under the street.
His heart is pounding now. He feels a cold sweat on his forehead. This is a classic disaster moment. He is thinking, what do I do? How do I tell Sarah? He cannot just leave them there, and he cannot go inside the apartment to water the plants. He is completely locked out of the building now, and his friend's keys are in a dark, dirty sewer grate.
Let's look at that word disaster for a moment. A disaster is a very bad event that happens suddenly and causes a lot of trouble. We often use it in a dramatic way for small everyday accidents like dropping your keys. You can say, my presentation at work was a disaster, or my cake burnt in the oven. It was a complete disaster.
By the way, if you are enjoying this story today, taking a second to like this video or subscribe really helps our channel reach other English learners around the world.
It really does. And please leave a comment if you have a question. We read and answer them all. Anyway, back to our poor character standing over that street grate.
That is a great word to know, and Leo is definitely having a miniature disaster. He stands up and paces back and forth on the sidewalk. He is trying to think, how can I fish them out? He looks around. The street is quiet. Then he looks at the apartment building's front door. He remembers something.
What does he remember, Hannah? Is there a spare key hidden somewhere? Maybe under a doormat or a fake rock?
Nope, nothing like that. But he remembers that just inside the lobby door, there is a small communal closet where people leave old umbrellas and metal wire clothes hangers. And luckily, the outer lobby door of the building is actually propped open with a heavy brick because someone is moving furniture today.
Oh, that is incredibly lucky. He can actually get into the lobby. So he walks through the open door, goes to the closet, and finds a wire hanger. Now, a wire hanger is a very useful tool in a situation like this. It is made of thin, bendable metal. You use it to hang clothes, but in emergencies, you can untwist it to make a long, straight wire with a little hook at the end.
Exactly. To untwist means to take something that is twisted or wound together and straighten it out. So Leo uses his hands to untwist the top of the hanger. He pulls and bends the metal. It is quite stiff, but he manages to make a long, thin wire. At the very end of the wire, he leaves the original hook shape. He thinks, this is perfect. I can use this hook to snag the key ring.
To snag is a wonderful informal verb. It means to catch or grab something quickly or unexpectedly, especially with a hook or a sharp edge. For example, I snagged my sweater on a nail. Here, Leo wants to snag the key ring with the hanger hook. It is like a game at a carnival, but with much higher stakes.
Yes. He runs back outside to the street grate. He gets back down on his knees. The concrete is hard and dusty, but he does not care. He slowly lowers the wire hanger down through the bars of the grate. His hand is shaking a little bit because he's nervous. He guides the hook down, down, down toward the glint of silver.
This is a very tense moment. Imagine looking through the bars, squinting your eyes in the bright daylight, trying to see into the dark hole. He gets the hook close to the key ring. He moves it gently. Left, right, a little bit to the side. The hook touches the metal ring. Clink.
He feels the connection through the wire. He carefully tries to loop the hook through the middle of the key ring. He holds his breath. He gets it. The hook is inside the ring. He starts to lift the wire very, very slowly. 1 inch, 2 inches. The keys are rising.
Oh, the suspense. He is actually doing it. But wait, is it really that easy?
Of course not.
Just as the keys are about halfway up, about 12 inches from the top, Leo's hand trembles. The keys hit the side of the concrete wall under the grate. Tap. The movement is very small, but it is enough. The key ring slips off the hanger's smooth metal hook.
Oh no, please tell me they did not fall further down.
They fall, but this time they do not land on the shallow ledge. They slide off the edge of the ledge and drop all the way to the very bottom of the deep, dark pit. Plop! A wet, muddy sound. They are gone, out of sight, out of reach, completely sitting in the dirty water at the bottom of the street drain.
That is absolutely devastating. The plop sound means they hit water or mud. Now, they are not just hard to reach, they are probably covered in dirt and completely unreachable with the simple wire hanger. The hanger is simply not long enough anymore. Leo's face must have turned pale.
He just sits there on the sidewalk, defeated. To defeat means to win against someone. So when you feel defeated, you feel like you have lost, and there is nothing more you can do. You have no energy left to try. He stares at the wire hanger in his hand. It failed.
So now he has no choice. The panic is gone, replaced by a deep feeling of embarrassment. He has to do the one thing he really did not want to do. He has to call his friend Sarah and tell her what happened. He has to admit his clumsy mistake.
Exactly. He takes a deep breath, pulls his mobile phone out of his pocket, and stares at Sarah's name on the screen. He feels a giant lump at his throat. To have a lump in your throat is a great English idiom. It means your throat feels tight because you are nervous, sad, or about to cry. Have you ever felt that way, Alex?
Oh, absolutely. Usually right before I have to admit to a big mistake. It is that physical feeling of anxiety. Leo is probably thinking about Sarah's beautiful green ferns and thirsty flowers inside the apartment. They are just a few meters away behind that locked door while the keys are sitting in a muddy puddle under the street.
Yes. He presses the call button. The phone rings. Ring, ring. Every ring feels like an hour. Finally, Sarah answers. Her voice is cheerful and bright. She says, "Hey, Leo, how is everything going with the plants? Did you find the fertilizer?" Hearing her happy voice makes Leo feel even worse.
That is the absolute worst timing. When you have bad news and the other person is in a fantastic mood, it makes the confession so much harder. To confess means to admit that you did something wrong or bad. How does Leo start his confession?
Well, he clears his throat and says, "Hi, Sarah. Yes, I am outside your building, but we have a small problem." Notice how he says we have a problem, even though he is the one who dropped the keys. That is a very common human reaction.
That is so true. People often say we have a problem to make the mistake sound a bit lighter or to share the burden. It is a polite but slightly cowardly way to introduce bad news. How does Sarah react to that?
She sounds a bit confused. She asks, "A problem? Did the key get stuck in the lock?" Sometimes the front door lock is a bit stiff.
Stiff is a great word here. It means something is hard to turn or move. If a lock is stiff, you have to twist the key very hard.
Right, a stiff door lock or a stiff drawer. But Leo's problem is much worse than a stiff lock. He has to tell her the keys are not even in the lock.
Yes, he says, no, the lock is fine. The keys are actually, well, they are down the drain, the metal street grate right outside your door.
There is a long silence on the phone. Sarah does not say anything for a few seconds.
Oh, that silence is deadly. A silence like that feels like it lasts forever. Is she angry, or is she just trying to understand what he just said?
She is just processing the information. To process information means to think about it and understand it slowly. Then she says, "Wait, down the street drain? How did they get down there?"
And now Leo has to explain his clumsy moments. He has to describe how he spun the keys around his index finger like a helicopter propeller, lost his grip, and watched them fly through the air. That must be so embarrassing to explain out loud.
It is. He explains it, his face turning redder by the second. He says, I was being clumsy. I dropped them, they bounced, and they went right through the metal bars. I tried to fish them out with a wire coat hanger, but they fell all the way to the bottom.
I love that he mentions the wire coat hanger. It shows he actually tried to solve the problem before calling. It makes him look a bit more proactive, even if the rescue mission was a total disaster.
Exactly. To be proactive means to take action to make things happen, rather than just waiting. But in this case, his proactive attempt made things worse by dropping them into the deep water. After he explains this, Sarah doesn't get angry. Instead, she starts to laugh. A warm, friendly laugh.
What a relief. That is the best possible reaction. If your friend can laugh at your clumsy mistake, you know you are forgiven. Why is she laughing? Is she just a very nice person, or is there a secret?
Well, she is a very nice person, but there is also a little secret. She says, Leo, you silly goose, you don't need to worry. That is actually my spare set of keys. My main set is with my neighbor, Mrs. Gable, in apartment 2B. I gave her a set last week just in case of an emergency.
No way! That is an incredible twist. So Mrs. Gable has a spare key right there in the same building? To have a spare key means to have an extra key that you keep in a safe place for emergencies. That is incredibly lucky for Leo.
Yes, he doesn't have to call a locksmith, and he doesn't have to wait on the street forever. Sarah tells him to knock on Mrs. Gable's door, borrow her key to water the plants, and then return it to her. She says they will figure out how to get the other keys out of the drain when she returns next week.
Wow, what a happy ending to a very stressful situation. Leo must have felt an enormous weight lift off his shoulders. When we say a weight lifts off your shoulders, we mean you suddenly feel free from stress or worry. It is a wonderful feeling.
He really did. He thanks Sarah a million times, promises to buy her a nice coffee to apologize, and hangs up. He stands up, brushes the street dust off his jeans, and walks into the building to find Mrs. Gable.
This story is so relatable. We have all had those clumsy moments where we wish we could rewind time by just 5 seconds. It teaches us some great vocabulary too, like grate, clumsy, fish out, stiff, and spare.
It really does teach us some fantastic vocabulary. And, even though the story had a happy ending, that phone call Leo had to make to Sarah is actually a very important part of the whole situation. Making a sheepish phone call is not easy.
Oh, absolutely. Let's talk about that word sheepish for a second. It is such a great English word. When you feel sheepish, it means you feel embarrassed or shy because you did something slightly foolish or clumsy. You might have a small, embarrassed smile on your face because you know you made a mistake.
Exactly, like when you accidentally spill juice on someone's white carpet and you look up at them with a sheepish grin. In this case, Leo felt incredibly sheepish. He had to call his friend to explain that her keys were now sitting at the bottom of a dark, wet street drain.
So, how do we make a call like that in English? How do we apologize sincerely when we make a clumsy mistake? I think the first step is to be direct and honest. Don't try to hide the mistake. You should say it clearly right at the beginning.
I agree. A good way to start is by saying, I am so sorry, but I have a bit of bad news. Or, you are not going to believe what I just did. These phrases prepare the other person for what is coming, but they are still polite and gentle.
Yes, those are perfect. And notice how Leo didn't make excuses. He didn't blame the street grate and he didn't blame the wind. He admitted his mistake. In English, we call this owning up to your mistake. To own up to something means to admit that you did something wrong.
That is a wonderful phrasal verb, to own up to something. For example, he owned up to breaking the expensive vase. It shows that you are responsible and trustworthy, even if you are clumsy sometimes.
And when you apologize, it is also very helpful to explain how you plan to fix the situation or resolve it. For example, Leo could have said, I will pay to get a new key made, or I will call a professional to see if we can get them out. Offering a solution shows you care.
Yes, it changes the conversation from just, I made a mess, to, I made a mess, but I am going to clean it up. It makes the other person feel much better. Thankfully, Sarah was extremely kind and had a spare key anyway, which made the resolution very warm and easy.
It really did. And because they resolved it warmly, their friendship is still strong. Actually, sometimes laughing at your own clumsy mistakes with a friend can bring you closer together. A true friend will understand that accidents happen.
They certainly do. We are all human and we all drop things. Well, Alex, I think we have covered some truly wonderful vocabulary today. From grates and stiff wire hangers to sheepish apologies and owning up to our mistakes.
We sure did, Anna. This was a really fun and helpful episode. I hope all of our listeners feel a bit more confident now, not only in their English listening skills, but also in how to handle those little everyday accidents in English.
Me too. Thank you so much for listening to us today, everyone. Keep practicing, don't worry too much about being clumsy, and always keep a spare key with a friendly neighbor if you can.
That is excellent advice. Take care, everyone. Keep learning, and we will see you in the next episode of the Easy English Podcast.